Mother's Day 2008, a strong nor'easter pummeled Delaware's coast, flooding roads and damaging homes. But the biggest effect was this breach of the dunes at Fowler Beach on the eastern edge of Prime Hook National Wildlife Refuge. After Hurricane Sandy moved through, the breach was even worse. The influx of water into the marsh is threatening the ecosystem and has worsened flooding for the Bay Shore communities.
It definitely impacts us from the marsh side. The breaches at Fowler allow such an influx of water from the bay that whenever we get an additional influx, like from a storm tide or whatever, there's no place for the water to go.
Jim Bailey has owned a home in Broadkill Beach for more than 30 years. He's been fighting to get the breaches fixed for years.
To allow a detrimental impact on the surrounding environs and the people that live and work in those surrounding environs, that's just not an acceptable issue.
Can you imagine waking up on a normal high tide day and your road coming into your house or your whole community is flooded? You don't know whether your kids are going to be able to get back on the school bus.
State Senator Gary Simpson represents many of the Bay Shore communities and has also been fighting to get the breach repaired.
And it's not just the Prime Hook residents, but this is a whole system starting from Slaughter Beach, coming down to Prime Hook and then down to Broadkill. It's a whole flooding system, so if you flood one area, you're going to flood another. And what we've seen with this flooding is not only the loss of the freshwater marsh, which had thousands of birds into it every winter, but we're seeing a whole vast area of trees that have been surrounding that marsh completely dead now.
Perhaps one of the only good things to come out of Superstorm Sandy is federal funding that should finally fix the breach. The National Fish and Wildlife Service will use $20 million in Sandy relief money to rebuild the dunes. Earlier this year, the National Fish and Wildlife Service finalized their comprehensive conservation plan to restore the marshes. It's something that has been long overdue. One item that's still being debated in the management plan for the refuge is how to best control mosquitoes that use the muddy banks of the marsh to reproduce. The current plan would limit the state's ability to use adulticide to kill mosquitoes in the marsh after this summer.
Now, if they were really to prohibit us from adulticiding, we'd have to cross that bridge when we come to it, but the service, I think, would have to have a better understanding and appreciation of what the consequences would be.
If the winds are calm or the wind is coming off of the marsh, oh my, it can be very grim. Years and years ago, you could actually hear the mosquitoes.
If left unchecked, the mosquito population on the coast could head further inland and cause problems for higher density populations like Milford or Dover.
Salt marsh mosquitoes are problematic. They're disease transmitters. They have long flight ranges. They can fly 5 to 15 miles inland from the marshes they're produced, and that then blankets a lot of Delaware with mosquito problems.
The fixes for Prime Hook come just as the state is looking to more broadly promote the Bay Shore. Last year, then U.S. Interior Secretary Ken Salazar toured the area as the state unveiled several projects to draw more visitors to this somewhat hidden treasure along Delaware's coast.
We tongue-in-cheek say this is the point around which the universe revolves, but we don't want the world to know. It's very quiet, really it's a congregation of a lot of very fine people.